Hello, fellow internet people. I wanted to go on a little rant today about something that's been on my mind recently. Well, for a while, but recently as well. And so I wanted to talk about the ego trap of finding enlightenment, right? And so, um, just to preface this, I was definitely in the New Age community, and it's a little embarrassing. I was never super woo woo, but I like, a lot of stuff, you can't disprove. So I was just kind of, keeping it out there in my mind as a potential truth per se. I've always been kind of skeptical, but I myself too, I think, got a little caught up in this ego trap even. And so this isn't to demonize people that are stuck there. I think this is just really to call awareness. And I might come across as a little judgmental because I'm a person and I'm imperfect. So, bear with me. But it's a really big thing in the New Age community. And so I want to talk about what I think like it comes from. And when we understand that, I think we can prevent it, or we can at least get out of it. So, as someone who was really lost for a really, really long time, and discovered psychedelics, I realized that there was more to life than what we could see. And the more I learned, I mean, obviously, the more I realized there was more I needed to learn. But it is interesting when you have this knowledge, then to interact with people who were where you were at before. And they're like, they have no concept of the intangible in life, really, living in a what you see is what you get kind of mentality, which, like I said, I can't judge because I lived there for so long. And so it's really not, I don't think, anyone's fault or anything. It's not like even necessarily a bad thing. It's just kind of the starting ground. And so, but I've noticed that a lot of people in the New Age community, once they reach these certain levels of understanding, instead of don't do that. Instead of it freeing them into more self-awareness, it actually traps them in their own sense of self. So if you don't know what ego is, ego has this like demonizing connotation with it, but it just means a sense of self. Really, that's all that ego means. Sorry that my cat was back there. It's really just a sense of self, and so ego is necessary. If you want to be a human and have a body, we have bodies separate from one another, unless you're a Siamese twin or something, but like we operate pretty individually in this existence. And so you have to have a separate sense of self to operate in this world, because this is a world of ego. And so it's not evil, it's not bad, it's just who you are. It's just your sense of self. When it becomes an ego trip, when it becomes bad or harmful rather to people, stop it. Sorry, my cat. I'm gonna put you inside if you don't stop. Sorry, my cat. Anyways, when ego can become damaging for us, or when our sense of self becomes damaging, is when it becomes elevated over others, right? And so when we think that our ego has more merit, more value, more worth, deserves things that others don't, that's when it becomes a problem and it becomes hurtful to those around us, right? And even hurtful to ourselves, even if we don't see it that way. Even if it is all about gimme, gimme, do good for me, that is still damaging us, because it is limiting our capacity to connect authentically with others. And so that does hurt us at the end of the day. Even if we have all the money or all the things, even if we've been able to turn public opinion positive of us, like at the end of the day, if those in our close, intimate lives don't want anything to do with us, we're kind of losing. And so people that are on these ego trips, I find that their close friends and even family sometimes slowly pull away from them because they see this ego trap that they're stuck in and they don't know how to help them. And I think it's a really important thing, too, to point out, I was just kind of thinking about this, is that sometimes an unbalanced ego can even lead to delusions, like delusions of grandeur in the narcissist, or even, I think, the New Age community really encourages people with potential hallucinations to believe that they are more special than other people, and that's why they can see and hear these things that no one else can. And so this is to the point where it really becomes damaging to the individual who is on this ego trip, right? So like, I think a lot of the issue comes from when people in the New Age community take all these theories and lore as facts, right? As like they know a hidden truth that no one else knows, or like, and it really it is a breeding ground for acceptance of hallucinations, both auditory and visual, where these people should probably be seeking mental health assistance because they are in touch with something that other people aren't, right? And maybe it makes them special or different, I don't know, but the point, or the fact is, the bottom line is that eventually they lose the ability to function in the real world. They can't hold a conversation with regular people. They can't take care of themselves. They can't work a job. And this is where it is incredibly hurtful for them, even if they don't realize it, even if they think, oh, I just can't keep a job because no one understands how special I am. It's like, okay, special is one word for it. And then, of course, in that extreme spectrum too, you have the people that think that they're like, part of like divination, like talking to angels or aliens or demons, and it's like, I guess it's possible. I mean, I think aliens, there's more of a chance that they're real than not real, but also too, I think it's good to have caution if you think that you are hearing another being that other people, no one else can. Like, it'd be one thing, I think, if like maybe you and like your friends could all hear like something that other people couldn't. That would be interesting, and I would give more merit to that. But when no one else, it's like too when it's a little bit of an ego trip when people, I think, first find out about the word empath, right? I hate that word. Empathy is great. I love empathy. I love people with empathy. I love to build and cultivate empathy in myself. Empathy is something every human, or most humans, I believe, are capable of. With the exception of maybe psychopaths. I don't know. I'm not there. I have no knowledge or training or whatever. But I know even myself, when I read about empaths from the New Age community, I immediately identified as one because everyone's capable of empathy, right? Some more so than others, though. And I do think that there is an energetic side to empathy that we haven't discovered yet, and I think that's just going to be science one day. But I do think that we have the ability. We everything's energy, right? So there is a bubble around us of our own energy, right? The energy that's always touching our molecules and stuff like that. And I do think that some people have a more natural ability to open up those energetic pathways and perhaps maybe even unconsciously feel the emotions of people around them and stuff. But most of the people in the New Age community that are bragging about being empaths, in my experience, are literally just projecting their own thoughts and emotions onto you and then claiming that that's how you feel. And when you say you don't feel that way, they tell you that you're lying. And it's like, what? What? Okay, you know how I feel more than I do. And that's the ego trip. It's when you think you know more about someone than they know about themselves. And sure, we can see people's patterns, I'm sure. But at the end of the day, we have to admit, we don't really know what it's like to be them. We don't really know where they're coming from or their intentions, It can look a certain way to us, and we can be pretty sure, but we'll never really know. And I think any person who's not on an ego trip does understand that they'll never truly know what it's like to be someone else. Even the worst of the worst, and I find it too, because I watch a lot of true crime, even the worst of the worst, a lot of times they've had the worst of the worst thrust upon them as well, just instead of breaking that cycle, they perpetuate it. And it's very sad to me, and I feel a lot of pity for people stuck in those cycles. I know I have been before, and I know how miserable I was. But yeah, the whole term empath just kind of like, it's like nails on a chalkboard for me, kind of. I'm like, oh, you're an empath because you have empathy. It's like, well, we have narcissistic traits too. Are we all narcissists? That's not true. It just, because the term empath has been kind of used to like prey on people's vulnerability of feeling like maybe they're too emotional, and then being told, no, this is actually a gift, this is something special, and then the ego takes that and can use it in all kinds of weird ways. And that's the thing. Just ego trips are generally unhealthy for the ego itself. But it's hard to keep it in balance, I'm not gonna lie. I think I've talked briefly about having a crazy psychedelic experience where I thought, maybe I'm God. Maybe I started everything. And that wasn't real. But it's just so crazy how convincing a thought process in the mind can be to fluff the ego up when we have these unique experiences or even mystical experiences, you know. And I'm not going to negate the validity and powerfulness of mystical experiences, despite there being no proof that they happened besides in your mind. I do think that journeys within the mind can be incredibly powerful and life-changing. The mind, we really just don't give it enough credit. And I think, too, one of the ways that we can avoid these ego traps is by genuinely and authentically building self-esteem and confidence, and understanding that the journey of enlightenment, it's not about a destination. It's about the journey itself. It's about becoming self-aware more and more every day. It's about growing your patience and learning to become more understanding, learning to let go of your own desires, really. And so it's not like, I mean, I guess there's a destination if you want to be like a Buddhist monk or someone like living on a mountain, not eating or just like meditating for like 100 years or something. But you know, I don't know if that's really a reasonable goal for people, for humanity, you know. I think we ought to be integrating what we know into our practical lives, because I think I've touched on this before as well. You can have all that spiritual woo-woo shit. I don't care if it's real. If you're not taking care of the physical reality, you're hurting yourself, you know. Maybe you can talk to aliens, but you don't have a job and you are homeless sleeping on people's couches. and too, okay, I just don't want to, I'm not trying to shit talk the New Age community. I am, but I'm not. But I do find that it's a breeding ground for abusers to take on those titles of empath or shaman or like enlightened being, and then they just use it to have a reason to abuse people, basically, like mentally, and sometimes even physically. And so I just think anyone who is claiming to be enlightened but then has an air of superiority is a fraud. They're fake. That's not what real self-awareness and understanding is. That's not what becoming like these Christ consciousness like beings is like. Those kinds of beings see the value in everyone, every living thing, really, depending on the religion, you know. Some religions would have you believe you're not worth any more than that flower outside or a rock on the street. And when someone is in an ego trip, they can't listen to something like that. They can't accept it. And I think, too, it stems from the ego trips can stem from feeling just like super insecure, and that's the mind's way to cope with the fact that it like hates itself and thinks it's not shit. So it makes up this whole like ego game where it's like, oh, but I can do this, this, and this, so now I'm special and I'm better than everyone else. And then that can snowball into like, well, now I have a right to like, you know, take money from people or something. You know, like it's just crazy how it can snowball a fragile ego into like a crazy, aggressive, abusive ego trip, you know? And it's just sad. But I think the more we can become aware of it, one, the more we can protect ourselves from people that are on that trip, and two, maybe, just maybe, we can help save people on that trip, because I can't imagine that's a fun place to be in life. You don't actually know what people really are thinking about you. Like, I don't know, that's kind of like one of my biggest fears, is that people just tolerate me, but that's really what's happening to these people that are like on these big ego kicks eventually, is that like they're so consumed with themselves and how much better and cooler they are than everyone else, how much more enlightened they are, and how they can like manipulate your energy, and they know exactly what you're thinking and feeling. And it's like, bro, leave me alone. You don't, if you really knew what I was thinking, you know how much I don't want to hear that you know what I'm thinking. You know, but so like that's like my biggest fear, is that like people are just tolerating me. But that's the reality for these people on these like deep into these ego trips, especially once they start to get outright aggressive and abusive with people, because they think they have a right to. And it's just super damaging for everyone involved, I think, even the person that's doing all the abusing. And that's what I think a lot of abusers don't realize, is that when they hurt other people, they're really just hurting themselves more. I can only imagine the environment of a mind of a person who has actively sought to hurt others. and like played mind games and gotten physically abusive, and like I can't even imagine what their conscience is telling them. I mean, I already deal with so much fucking guilt just for being alive. Like, fuck me. If I was actually doing bad shit to people, like, it's not really even surprising at that point that they have to go through some kind of mental gymnastics just to survive, just to exist like that, just to cope with the reality of who they are. And like I said, I feel very sad for people like that. And I don't want them to be like that. I don't think they want to be like that. I don't think anyone wants them to be like that. And I think it's even a touch of compassion for them, even though that kind of makes me mad at myself because I don't want to feel compassion for shitty people, but it's happening. So, I don't know. I really just wish that people on ego trips could find beauty in the humility. I think that is something really powerful, and like true humility, not feigning humility, not telling other people you're not shit, not because a lot of times I feel like people do that to like get fish for compliments, like get people to tell them, oh no, you're great, you're great. It's like that's just egotistical too, it's a mini ego trip. But true humility where you alone sit back and you realize like, wow, every single billion human that's on this planet is capable of whatever I'm capable of, and I'm capable of what they're capable of, like emotionally and spiritually, at least, not necessarily physically. Physical disabilities exist, and that takes away your capacities. But anyways, so like spiritually, at least, though, if we are to believe that the spiritual existence is real, the collective consciousness, all that, well, then every single person, regardless of mental or physical capability, should have the same spiritual capability, right? We're all one. We're not separate, really. And that's, I think, why sometimes ego trips too can happen, is because when we see how unseparate we are, it is unsettling for the separate sense of self to be like, oh my God, I thought I was just me. And so it has to fight back, and it's gonna be like, no, it is just me. And it's just me, 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 me. And it's just, it really is kind of like tragic in its own way to see people who have this true inquisitive soul, and they kind of go off the deep end and they get lost in the rabbit hole ego trap, and despite perhaps having very good intentions to learn and grow, I think maybe a red flag to notice if you're in that is, are you still, and like, be honest with yourself, are you still actively trying to learn and grow spiritually, or have you just stopped? Do you think that you know it all? Because no one knows it all, and even with all the gnosis in the world, we'll never know it all, really. I don't think the human brain can comprehend that in our body. Like the ego itself, I don't think can make sense of what the spirit can know on like a non-cellular, not intangible kind of level. Or maybe, real and physical, atomic, we just can't see it, And like I said, I really think there's so much science that needs to be discovered about like energetic fields around humans, electromagnetic fields especially, and stuff like that. Because even just the known fact of like, hey, your heart just has this like pulse that is like an electromagnetic charge, and we don't really know what makes it start. It just is. And it's like, well, we should probably look into that one, huh? Or maybe we do know, and I just haven't looked into it. Either way, yeah, I will stop talking because I kind of feel like I'm on a little ego trip right now. I don't know more than other people, just so y'all know. But I do think that anything I make a video about is worth putting out there and worth, having a discussion about, because maybe I'm wrong. That's fine too, but I want to have a discussion about this topic. And so I really appreciate everyone who listens, likes, comments, all that stuff. And you guys are all welcome to follow me on other social media and engage in like messaging on other apps and stuff like that. I have my link tree, and it's got like my Facebook and my Instagram, and then like my other social medias and Facebooks and Instagrams. But yeah, so I hope everyone has a good day, and just, it's important to try to find that genuine sense of humility and understanding that we are all very similar spiritually and capacity wise. We may not be at the same point. I'm not gonna parallel with a priest or a monk spiritually, you know. But at the same time, too, I think really just the attitude that we have is what's going to matter the most. Being honest with ourselves and having that genuine curiosity and desire to do better each day. I think when we're in an ego trap, it's hard to really want to do better because we think we're fine the way we are, right? That's where humility, I think, can come in, understanding that we can be better, and it doesn't knock who we are today to be better tomorrow. It's just the journey, you know? So, this is too long. Oh my god, I'm sorry, guys. 20 minutes. This is probably like one of my longest videos, so have a good one. Bye.